Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to recognize our team members who are here. We have Deputy Director Courtney Weinstock, Chief of Capital Development Drew Emmer, Chief of Recreation Services Amy Vagnoni, Chief of Nature, Agriculture, Environmental, and Director Programs Ben Porter, and then you've heard from our landscape architect David Odell. And before we do open the meeting, I would like to recognize Councilman David Marks and give him the opportunity to speak. So, Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith, and all of the Department of Recreation and Parks staff. I'm very excited about tonight's meeting. This will be the 5th new park to advance in Perry Hall since 2010, and is the result of a lot of hard work by a number of citizens. First, I want to acknowledge the county executive for his strong support. When we were negotiating with the Bierman family to preserve this property as a park, the county executive was right there beside me, and I appreciate all of his support. I want to also acknowledge the White Marsh Recreation Council and its president, Ed Baranek. They helped us by providing the funding to overcome a gap in financing, and they worked with the Glenside Farms community to help remove debris and overgrowth from the property before the county took possession of that. So I want to thank all of our partners, as well as the Perry Hall Improvement Association and the Glenside Farms HOA for the work they've done. I did create a task force to look at potential uses at this property, and have forwarded those recommendations to the county. I think generally a lot of people wanted to see some limited uses here, but tonight's meeting will give us a better idea of what the support is in the community for specific activities at the property. The bottom line is that by acquiring this 22-acre parcel, we preserved it from development. We continued our record of protecting open space, particularly in the Honeygo area, and we have set the stage for some excellent recreation and parks activities in the future. So again, thank you to our recreation and parks staff. Thank you to the county executive, to the Glenside Farms community, to the White Marsh Recreation Council, and to all of you for participating tonight.
Thank you, Councilman. I would also like to recognize, I see we have Katie Cavanaugh, who is our Community Supervisor 1 in the White Marsh community. And I also see Patrick Taylor from the Executive's Office is also in attendance this evening. And so this parcel kind of represents a new opportunity for us in the White Marsh area, a blank slate opportunity for development. But really that development is going to be guided by you, the residents, as we take this public input. This is a blank slate opportunity. We have no preconceived ideas, and really our goal this evening is to hear from the residents and community about what they would like to see at this parcel. So as was mentioned, after Chief Emmer goes through the presentation, we will open it up for comments and questions. But really, we just want to encourage you to engage with us this evening and bring forward any ideas you may have related to this parcel. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief of Capital Development, Drew Emmer.
Thank you, Director Smith. All right, we'll hop into it. Gerst Road Park site. We currently do not have a design consultant engaged. We are coming to you first to see what thoughts we have before we start any design work. We've done a little bit of research in-house, which we're going to share with you tonight. This project is currently funded for design, $600,000, which we feel will adequately fund the design for a park site. If you're unfamiliar with the area, the Gerst Road property is located in the White Marsh area, as shown here. This property, which was purchased by the county in September 2021, is 22.3 acres. It's within the boundaries of the White Marsh Rec Council. It was a former community hall and farm, and it actually was previously proposed for residential development. They actually went all the way through to design, so we're very happy that this was preserved and now we have it for public use. In the summer of 2023, after some issues with vandalism, we had all the existing structures on the property raised. Currently, it's just an open, flat site. As Director Smith stated, this is a rare opportunity. We rarely get a clear, flat, open piece of land over 20 acres. So there's a lot of potential, a lot of things we could do here. This shows the property line, our assumed buffers. There is a utility easement and a small stream buffer that we need to work through design. Just to show the scale of how large this property is, these are to scale. This multi-purpose field, 90-foot baseball diamond, and 4 pickleball courts. Those are scaled to the site as shown. And as you can see, there's a lot of room at this site. We went ahead and put together what we call a bubble diagram showing potential uses for the site and how various activities could be placed in various places. This thought would be to have passive recreation such as walking past meadows in the area surrounding the existing houses, with the active recreation being closer to the road and the parking lot. And this is where we actually have some questions today, which we're hoping to get some answers once we get to the Q&A portion. Currently, right now, as we wait for development, we have, as you see, part of the areas on a 2-week mowing schedule. Part of it is on a seasonal rough mow. We also had kept a buffer closer to the houses. Baltimore County Rec and Parks and Property Management has been getting feedback from different residents, some who want more area mode, some who want less area mode. So we're hoping to get some feedback in this meeting on how the community would like this site maintained while we prepare concepts for development. As far as timelines, as I stated earlier, it's only funded for design currently. We're not funded for construction. The thought would be we'd gather public input this summer and fall. In fall, we could engage our design consultant to prepare concepts. We'd work through winter, putting together those concepts for a spring presentation and another public input meeting where we could share our concepts and get some more public input. The goal then would be to go after funding for construction, and these are all estimated timelines. If everything went without a hitch, we're looking that we could request funding in summer of 2024, do design and permitting through 2024 to 2026. And our best case scenario would be a summer 2026 construction start and spring 2027 ribbon cutting. I know that sounds like a lot of time, but it is a lot of work. And those years tend to fly by. As we've seen, we have a lot of ground breaks ahead of us that were years in the coming. As always, we want your input. We'll bring this back up at the end of the meeting, but this is our capital projects email address. We'd ask you to email us if you have any questions or comments after this meeting. And at any point during Q&A, we can go back to the presentation and pull up any slides if anybody wants some further information. And as we stated earlier, this recording will be posted on the Baltimore County YouTube site, so you can always go back and reference it. Director Smith, any comments before we go into Q&A?
Yes, and thank you, Drew. I would also like to recognize Delegate Kathy Schlega is on the call. Delegate, would you like to make any comments?
No, just glad to be here. Thanks so much.
Certainly. And again, I would also like to add to Councilman Marks's recognition of former White Marsh Recreation Council President Ed Moranic is on the call as well. Good to see you, Ed. And I do believe, I could be making a mistake, but I do believe Pat Roddy from the Board of Recreation and Parks is also on the call. Pat? I could be mistaken. Okay, well, we have now seen the presentation So really, this is now your chance as the public to input on what you would like to see at this parcel. So I know we have a couple of comments that have come in on individuals who would like to speak. As David said at the beginning, if you'd like to make a comment or a suggestion, you can either raise your hand as Alexander just did, or you can place your comment in the chat and we will work through those. So with that being said, we will be glad now to listen to what you would like to see at this potential park site.
Drew, first question is from Donna McDonough. You'd unmute her.
All right, you're unmuted.
Hello. I live in, or we live in Forge Heights, which is adjacent to Glenside Farms. And I don't know what the other one's called. Anyway, we are, we have seen the tremendous amount of parks that are around the area, which is awesome. But in seeing them, most of them are really geared towards a lot more towards sporting events and things of that nature. And personally, we would like to see more open space with, as you said, something about meadows and walking paths and bike paths. There's nothing, especially along Gerst Road. People try to walk along Gerst Road, and it is a suicide possibility because it's the worst.
How do you?
Worst road. And my thought, I mean, was that it wasn't going to be a lot of development. So all the, the charts that you showed and stuff showed, pickleball courts and this, that, and the other. I would really like to see it be more of an environmental space. Like I said, walking paths and such, and non-permeable, or I'm sorry, permeable spaces. I know there's already a concrete pad and all that there, which is fine. But rather than adding more places to drive or park, it should be more accessible from from walking, I think, because you've got that development there that has, so many houses and, we're nearby. The nearby residents, I think it would be a boon to us to be able to walk through there and enjoy nature and have, the birds and the animals and all that stuff, that things that we don't get to see on a regular basis. Did you have anything to add? So we're looking for a more nature site than rec site. And of course, nature is recreational. So, so that's my comment.
Thank you. And sorry, Director.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, yes, ma'am. We would normally refer that as a passive recreation use versus a programmed recreation use.
Right.
I would add, no matter what we do there, if there's a development, there is a goal from our department to have a accessible walking path, whether it be a passive site or an activated recreation site. The goal would be to have a walking path around it, similar to Honey Go. You name any park we've done recently, that is the goal. But as we said earlier, this is a unique site in that it is cleared. It's a a farm field, so it's what leads it to the possibility for sporting. And we purposely put the mock-ups outside the area because we don't have any ideas what we're going to put there, and we're looking for their input here.
And really, the field pieces that we put up were just to kind of give a scope of size to the park for those very familiar with the area. The developed area of Honey Go Park is about 22 acres, so they're not dissimilar in sizes, just to give you the concept of how big of a parcel we're talking.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Donna.
Thank you.
We have
Hello?
Megan. Didn't put a last name.
Hello. I was curious, depending on.
Say something.
First, you can raise your hand.
Did somebody else?
Ms. Klingenstein, we will certainly get to you.
No, I'm not tech savvy and I don't know how to get your attention.
Oh, we-
Ma'am, we
I
will,
can wait until she can go and I'll go after her. That's fine with me.
Alice, are you ready to speak? Because we can give you the microphone.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So my husband and I, we live on New Gerst Lane, and we have one of the fields in front of us that we were hoping could get cut because of the thistle. But I do have to agree with the lady that just spoke. You know, we're retiring and we can't use athletic fields. You know, our tax dollars would go toward that, but we're not in Little League. We don't have grandchildren. We don't have children that would use those. So we would like it to be in its most natural state as possible. We've lived here for 35 years and we have enjoyed this beautiful view in front of our house. And I know when I first spoke to David Marks a while back, he was going to advocate for no high mast lighting and as keeping it in its natural state as possible. The other big issue, we have a very small little road here,
Got a senior development coming up too.
and we would really prefer that no entrance to this park be on New Gerst Lane of any kind. So those are our main concerns. We're happy that it's a park. We're happy that it is not more development because we have been totally socked in by houses.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we have the Gerst farm that now is going to be the 55 and over development, and that's going to be huge with houses and everything that comes with that. So we would really prefer that it be in its most natural state, no high mast lighting, no entrance off of New Gerst Lane. And so that's about it for my comments.
Yeah, she needs cut down.
Thank you, Alice. And Megan, thank you for waiting. Let's turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I was curious, depending on the development of this area, is an environmental impact assessment going to be done or has one been done in the past? And that's part one of my question.
Yeah, so that would be determined by the design consultant if we needed a phase 1 or phase 2 environmental assessment. I believe there's already been assessments done, but we'd be able to speak on that once we engage a consultant.
Okay, and then my second question is if and when that assessment's conducted. Obviously, things have changed with the 55 plus community that someone just mentioned earlier that's going to be directly across from Gerst Road. And so that's obviously going to be a lot of impervious area that wasn't previously there. So I think my concern is with all of the housing developments, there's obviously stormwater management that's already in place that's being maintained. So how are we going to manage that if we're adding additional impervious surface or just less pervious surface with things like pickleball courts and all of that? Would there be some kind of water feature, additional space in the retention pond? What's that going to look like?
So that would all be determined by the consultant. We do stormwater management with all our projects. It's required. We'd do it even if it wasn't required, but our consultant would be the one that would determine all those items. And they'd also determine how much impervious surface we could have at this site. But our calculations for this site wouldn't be in any way related to other sites that aren't under our responsibility or design.
Okay, and maybe I guess that's a question for David Marks, but is it, I'm not sure how that's governed, if it's the first folks that develop the area. So if the park is developed first and then the 55 plus community comes afterward or vice versa, obviously you're doing stormwater calculations. You have to consider the surrounding areas. So I'm not sure if it's in who takes precedence, but I think if we have two different folks that aren't working together, developing two separate uses, we could run into issues if we're not looking at that holistically.
Councilman, I can take that unless you want to add anything to it. Councilman, you're muted.
Councilman, you're mute.
You may want to talk about some of the more technical aspects. I would just say that our stormwater regulations are very robust, and that the Gerst farm development, 40% of that will remain open space, including the wooded area that is to the, I guess, the north of the farm. But Bob, if you want to talk about the more technical details, feel free to.
Yeah, and Drew will lead into that. I will just add that each project would have its own independent stormwater management requirements. Like one project would not tip over into the other. They're each done independently for the specific property of that project. So they don't kind of impact each other that way.
Yeah, to tack onto that, the reason they're treated individually is just for what you were talking about. You don't want one project to impact another. So in other words, our project couldn't be reliant on there being pervious ground across the street. We'd have to treat everything on our site for our site. So they could build, not like they ever could, but they could build a huge concrete pad across the whole thing, across the street, and it wouldn't affect what all the things that we'd have to do for our site. The same way if they left it completely open grass, it wouldn't change anything at our site either.
Okay, thanks for that. And I think just, I mean, again, echoing what other folks are saying on the call here, leaving it kind of a natural space. There's a lot of animals just, you know, as you're going through that area, there's a ton of animals in this area. It's being developed more and more and more. So I understand people want to live in houses. We live in houses here. This area was developed at one point too, so we're not against that, but just making sure that we're leaving as much intact and as much passive space as possible, I think, for this community not to be completely changed in the environment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Megan, thank you for your thoughtful comments. I want to recognize we have two people with their hands up and they were up early. So Drew, could you unmute Alexander Dabrowski, please?
Sure. I just wanted to take these two comments first. From Pat, is there any anticipation of walking paths connecting surrounding communities to the park? We're not anticipating anything right now, but I will say that our department is committed to connecting communities with walking paths. So it's certainly something that we would want to pursue for any development of a park. There's also a ton of walkers along the road, and I'm sure they would love to be able to connect walking paths surrounded by nature. Absolutely agree. All right, Alexander, you are unmuted.
All right. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
All
can.
right. Yeah, I'm kind of echoing what everyone said, but I think it'd be crazy not to have some natural native biodiversity there and, you know, even do maintenance and volunteer to get rid of invasive species, because even if you leave it there, there's still some invasive species, you know, and could have a meadow and things like that. But I'm confident you guys will make a good decision, but I just want to make it short and sweet. Definitely have native plants, trees, and things. So the species that we've kind of been, you know, killing with overdeveloping have a place to live and that stuff. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. And Drew, would you unmute Ed Baranek, please?
Yeah, just wanted to touch on that. We did remove a bunch of invasive species from this property, and we intend to keep doing that. With all our projects, we will infill with trees, and we always use native plants when we develop new parks. Oh, what was, sorry, David.
Ed Baranek.
Ed Baranek.
There we go. You are unmuted.
Thank you. Drew, could you pull up the slide that show? I just want people to understand, if you're not familiar with the property and with kind of field space, I just want to kind of point something out. Just the one that had the buffers, I think would be great. So just so people understand, and if you're driven by the property, there's a slab that's where the community center used to sit. And if you look at that slab and you look at the grade of the land, while we drive past it every day, it may look like a nice level piece of property. there's an 80 to 100-foot difference in elevation, I believe, from what's on the bottom half of this schematic to what's on the top half. So to put in any kind of, I just want to make people understand that to put in any type of kind of field, multi-purpose baseball field would require a huge amount of movement of dirt and regrading, which is not a cheap endeavor. As Bobby indicated, as former president of the White Marsh Rec Council, we certainly support the passive park concept for this park, and I'm in agreement with pretty much everything everyone said. Sidewalks are a challenge. If we could connect communities, I think that's absolutely something that's very desirable in this community. Because right now, and I think I forget who mentioned it, walking up Gerst Road is taking your life in your hands. So to the extent any of that can be factored into the design, whether it's sidewalks on that side of the street as part of the park, I think that's also very desirable. And I guess I also have a couple questions. Do we know kind of we've seen the timing laid out. Do we know what the timing is of the other development on the Gerst Farm property? I guess that would be directed towards David.
My understanding is that the earliest will be 2025, probably.
Okay. So it is possible that these could be going on and coordinated around the same time.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then Drew, you had asked a question about mowing. I believe someone is mowing some of that property more frequently than your 14-day schedule. I don't know if it's a private citizen who's mowing it, but it's pretty short, pretty regularly. So I just wanted to raise that, and I appreciate the county coming out. I believe it was last week and taking down a lot of that high growth where the barns used to be. That was becoming quite a jungle there. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our seasonal mow. I can tell you a 14-day cycle is pretty typical for us. We only mow once a week for our fields, so we can ask about that.
Well, I think someone else may be mowing. That's my point.
Got it. We will appreciate that, and we'll certainly look into that. As far as your comments about the topography, I don't know that that's accurate. We can pull up a topo once we have it surveyed, but I don't believe that to be accurate.
But if you look at that slab, the further slide of that slab from Gerst Road, there's a huge drop off before you get to the parking lot. And then on the Gerst Road side, you're well above that slab. So it's a pretty sizable change in topography across that property.
Thank you. And we will have a topo to show when we next present.
Thank you.
Ed, thank you. I want to recognize that there's a couple of people waiting, Terry, Nolan, and Alice. But Drew, you want to go through some of the more just general comments on the chat?
Sure. We have from Stork, I agree with Donna, no concrete. Another comment, agree with more passive and permeable area. Another, I agree with Donna as well, no concrete and not a program rec park. Another comment, developing it for active use would probably consume much of the acreage. I don't necessarily agree with that. The activated area at Honeygo Park, which is huge, is less than this. That's around 21 acres.
And on that piece, it would be the level of development for active use would determine how much of the parcel would be consumed by that. So it would all depend on what we put in there for active use.
A question, use current foundation concrete for any active or parking needs. Certainly something our consultant will look into. I can tell you when we demoed it, I was shocked there was not a crack in that concrete slab after we ran all that machinery on it. So there's a good chance it might be a foot deep. So certainly something we'll be looking into. Comment, I live close to the park. Sidewalks on Gerst needed. Agree a more natural site with benches will be great, like trails at Cowington Crossing. We love benches. There will definitely be benches. And we are in favor of sidewalks. If that's something that's viable, it's certainly something that we'd be pushing to put in. What
Okay,
is the plan?
I'm sorry, Drew.
Sorry, Drew.
If we want to go back to a couple questions,
Sure.
Terry Nolan has been waiting. Would you unmute Terry?
All right, you are unmuted.
Okay, I've been involved with the community for 30 years now, and I was looking forward when we first was bought that it was at least a partial replacement for Nottingham Park, which is closed. The school was building the middle school, which was desperately knew that would happen sooner or later, but we never replaced the facilities that we have. Talk about growth in the county. There are facilities like infrastructure, and part of infrastructure is parks that are athletic for sports. The whole park here, I heard the same thing Ed said about the topography. If it is really like that, there is other places around Mount Vista that could be turned into athletic fields much cheaper than redoing an entire 150 drop. But you could have a multi-purpose. You look at Cowington Park. We have fields there and we have beautiful walking paths there. Talk about Honeygo Park, 22 acres of 173 acres are done for sports. They have walking trails over there, which could be expanded because I've walked ones that haven't been there. We have, as far as parks, we have a beautiful state park right up the street, which I use extensively. So my thing is, I don't want to plus the budget putting in athletic fields, but I think as the example of Cowington Park, where it could be done both. That's my comments. If it's going to cost $1 million to regrade, I would rather see that $1 million spent at Mount Vista Park.
Thank you again. I'd like to reiterate that I do not believe that the grade keeps on getting steeper. It was 100, now it's 150. I just want to make sure that we leave this meeting knowing that it's something that we're going to investigate and find out.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Terry. So Alice has another question. Would you unmute Alice?
You are
Are we there?
You are on.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah, this is Ed Klingenstein. Yeah, the county's the one that cut that grass recently. I had spoken with the maintenance division. The young lady sent me the map that you're currently working with showing the mowing plan. However, when there was the first time this grass was cut early this spring, I did meet with one of the maintenance supervisors who assured me that it would be cut on a 2-week basis. However, there's been a map that was set aside without any other input from others, and the area that's being cut, we have a hard time understanding why the areas that are not near residents aren't being cut and areas that are just out in open space are being cut. It's kind of backwards. This part that's out here in front, as the first time I complained a long time ago, and reported it, there's a lot of thistle and other weeds that are growing out there. So the supervisor informed me and assured me that this would be cut on a regular basis and they would use herbicides as well to address it. Well, it's still growing and it's actually very high. They had recently cut down the I think it was white grass that was out there, and on New Gerst Lane actually. And again, this stuff's very high. They sent out a boy's toy to do a man's job to cut that high grass, which was probably 3 feet tall. And they sent out a 0-turn mower to do it. So the guy took 2 days to cut less than an acre of grass. So again, sending the wrong tools to do the right job and incompleting it. So this stuff that's along Gerst Road has to be cut and maintained, or New Gerst Lane, I'm sorry, has to be cut and maintained. It's very hard for us to even control the weeds in our personal property because of the way the wind blows over here. And I'm asking for somebody to come out here and finish cutting it. You spent a lot of money to cut down the trees, and the trees are growing.
So we have it on a seasonal mow, and that was due to public response. So that's why we're having the
Didn't ask
conversation
us.
now.
I'm sorry, but what public response, and when did this occur?
Nobody asked us.
There.
We live
Oh,
here.
We're
hold
bordering
on.
neighbor, we're bordering
Oh.
property, and we were never notified of this.
Hold on. So we got emails into the county, and we're having the conversation right now. I have it up on the screen, and we're having the conversation right now because I want to hear what you're saying, and we're taking note of it.
Okay, I mean, that's fine. I appreciate that. What I'm getting at, like, we're really tired of these community meetings that are online. I do enough with them with the work. But again, there is the areas that are being cut are kind of ridiculous. I mean, what's the open space out there being cut for? Nobody can use it. It's not around any of the bordering properties. The bordering properties now are fighting with all the weeds that are growing. So yeah, it's backwards. This
Sir,
mowing
are you
plan that you
asking?
got up front is backwards.
So, sir, are you now asking that we put everything on a 14-day cut?
No, I'm telling you, my opinion is that 50 feet around the entire property that borders existing real estate or residential real estate and the roadways should be kept cut. I don't care about the middle. The wildlife can use that.
I can tell you that people do use the middle of the site. I mean, we get.
I live here and I see every day there is nobody using this site. This is my
Sir,
front yard. I
we
look
will
out my
take
window.
these, and we will take these requests back to the Office of Property Management. That is the county agency that handles the grass cutting, because our
I
agency
understand that.
doesn't do it. So we will take those comments back to them for review with them.
No sidewalks, no sidewalks.
And I'm just kind of curious that the county went through all this time and trouble to cut down the trees and everything, but they didn't take out the stumps, so the trees are still growing. What was the reason for that?
Again, we don't handle the maintenance. It's handled by the Office of Property Management, who handled that project, but we will follow up with them.
Okay.
All right, as I know, it's tough on the mowers.
Okay, and the other thing, I don't.
Yep, we're all.
Wait,
You're still on, ma'am. Ma'am, you're
Okay.
still on.
Okay, so the other thing, when you all were just mentioning sidewalks, like I said, New Gerst Lane is a tiny, tiny little country road, and we would prefer that no sidewalks, nothing be changed on our road at all as far as the park goes, other than mowing where all the stuff is growing. But we'd just like it to keep in the most natural state as possible along here. Because like I said, we've been here and all of our neighbors 35 plus years, and we have enjoyed this beautiful natural scenery that is directly out our front windows. I mean, we see every activity that goes on in this parcel because it literally is an extension of our front yard.
thank you, but we need to
We're
move
fully
on.
aware, we understand. We're fully aware. We understand there is change and change takes place. And again, thank goodness it's become a park and not the residential development that we were facing before. David is very familiar with the property. He's familiar with my wife and I. But you know, again, I'm not speaking just for myself. I mean, I know my neighbors are online with us right now, and we have these concerns because it's actually right across the street from our property. If it hadn't been for me and Robbie Bierman cutting along the edge of the road, the grass along the edge of the road here would probably be 3 feet tall by now. We cut it every 2 weeks.
Sir, we can come back, but I really want to get through the people that have additional.
No, we're good.
All right, I'm going to go through some comments. Anything related to the development across the street, we can circle back at the end if there's time. I want to keep this meeting to this park site. A comment, definitely no big lighting. Comment, trails, meadows. The 55 development will overwhelm local traffic on Gerst. We live on Glen Vista, original owners. We would also like to see a passive walking park with no high-powered lighting. Another comment, light pollution from big lights like nearby parks should be off the table, hopefully. Ponds, gardens, trails, benches, and trees would be ideal. And I'll do one more, then we'll go to questions. Honeygo Park has a lot of athletic fields. From the comments I'm seeing, it seems that most people prefer natural areas. Just one more yes from the comments. Most, if not all, would prefer a passive park, not active. David, do we have any people waiting to speak?
I do not believe so. Let me just check see if anybody has a hand raised.
I'll just keep on going with the comments. I would
Yes.
love fitness stations along a trail path, maybe open meadow space for picnics or kites, not athletic fields. And that is the last comment I have.
And I see no further hands raised. So I'm assuming that's the end of the comments and suggestions.
Okay, well then, I want to thank everyone for their input. This is our first vital step in the process as we look at this parcel. This has been extremely helpful for us to gauge the community's interests in this parcel. So we'll take this information back. We'll begin to have internal conversations, and then we'll begin to develop, some potential concepts related to the input we've received here. Again, however, this is not the only time you can comment, and please, everyone, take this email address here. And if you have neighbors, friends who could not make it this evening, or if something occurs to you later, if you see, a park design elsewhere that you think was fantastic, and yes, Mr. Baranek, I'm speaking to you, who has sent me some parks in the past. If you see a park design that you think would be fantastic, by all means, send that to us. We can look at it and research it, see what went into that park as well, and see if that is something that could be duplicated in this property. These don't have to all be our ideas. Other municipalities and locations have fantastic parks as well. I am partial to ours, however, but we are not afraid to take good ideas from elsewhere. So please take note of this email address. Also, if you go to our Baltimore County page and the Recreation and Parks page, email address is there as well. And we'd be glad to hear from you further. Councilman, do you have any closing remarks before we shut the meeting down?
I want to thank everyone for participating. Thank you very much to the Recreation and Parks staff and Pat Roddy, who is the 5th District representative on the Recreation and Parks Board. I have also, as Ms. Klingenstein mentioned, referenced my preference for keeping a large degree of this as passive. I certainly am very sympathetic to the residents nearby, but I also think we can find that right balance, that right blend. This is a beautiful property, and we want to keep it that way. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Councilman. And I think we have one more question about when would the next meeting be. It'll come after we do some concept development. So spring 2024 is when we anticipate the next public input. But all during that time, please feel free to send us any comments or suggestions you may have related to this parcel. So again, thank you all. I'd like to thank the Recreation Parks team for all the work that went into getting this together. And again, thank you all for your input. Have a good evening.